You guys could, I wish you guys knew all the stuff that happens in the background and in the times when you're praying and you have your eyes closed and all this stuff. There was a slight change in the order of service that happened unexpectedly as they were going up here, and it kind of threw everybody off, and everybody's kind of looking around, and so they were praying, and Miss Kathy was standing over there at the piano, and she was standing up, and she was going like this, and somebody over here was looking at him. And it was interesting, but I appreciate these young people. It takes a team to do this stuff, not a village, but a team. We don't have a village. We don't have enough for that, but we have a team, and it's a pretty good team, and it's kind of interesting to watch them as they put this together, and they do, for who they are and how old they are and the experience that they have, they do an excellent job, and I appreciate them being up here to do that. So if you have a Bible, if you turn to Nehemiah chapter 2, I'm going to look at some stuff here tonight. I don't know what to really call it. I do have kind of a title, but I don't know. I'm just going to go with it. But here's the thing. I'm going to be watching some of you guys. I'm a youth pastor. I don't even have my phone on me. I left my phone in my office. But I know what it is when I say turn to your Bibles and you use your phone or your iPad and you're looking at it like this, because this is how you would read on your iPad or your phone, like this. So if I see you doing this, that is not, or if you're going, bing, and you're flicking Angry Birds over or something, I know that you're not paying attention, you're not actually reading it, because in our day and age, I've had to adjust and adapt, because when I first started being a youth pastor, we didn't have cell phones that had all this stuff on it. And so now we do, and it's hard to say, don't bring your phones, and so we just we use them as a tool that God has given us to use, but you can always tell reading or flipping through other stuff. And so we always know those things and can do that. But tonight especially, because there's a game on TV or something, Alan, if I see you watching it, Brian, if I see you up there watching it up there on the computer screen, then we'll know about it, and we'll just kind of see how these things go, because I know how this stuff is. It's just a football game. All right, so some of you guys got that, some of you didn't. You just didn't. I dabbed a little bit there. I know what it's called, see? All right, man, I don't even know how you start now. In 2016, our church has a tremendous opportunity to reach out to even more to people around us with the gospel. God has given us a beautiful building. He's given us the tools, all these things that we have to be able to reach out to people in our community, to reach out to people around the world and to do these things. But many times we stumble and we fall because we lack confidence in others around us. Those things happen. Trust. By definition, it means reliance on the integrity, strength, ability, surety of a person or thing. Confidence. It's a small word. It only has 5 letters. It's easy to spell. It's easy to pronounce. But it's one of the hardest things to do, is to trust. Back in June of 2002, I had been a youth pastor for about 6 months. And I took about 12 teenagers on my very first mission trip ever. I had never been on a mission trip ever before 2002, June of 2002. Never been on a mission trip ever. And I took about 12 teenagers, and we went to Overland Park, Kansas, to work with a home missionary there who was starting a church. And so we were doing some things with him for 3 or 4 days, and we were up there having a good time and doing some stuff. On the second to last night, we were at the missionary's home having a cookout in the backyard. He had a deck that was about 3 or 4 foot high, not super high, and he had a deck, and we were up on the deck, and we were grilling out hamburgers and hot dogs, and we were eating and having a good time. Now, again, this is my first ever mission trip. And I have some boys that were in my youth group then, the little guys, these are junior high kids, and they were very athletic. Played football, played baseball, played all of these contact sports, did a lot of things. I mean, they were just all over things. And they were on the deck, and they were jumping off. Okay? It's only 3 or 4 feet. These boys are athletic. They know what they're doing. We do stuff like this all the time, and 2 of the boys are even the preacher's kids. They were twins, and 2 of them were the preacher's boys. And they were just jumping and having a good time. I wasn't worried about it. Normally, people that would do that understand what happens when you hit the ground and how to land and you jump, especially these boys. Now, I'm watching them boys. And as we're watching these boys, I had some of the girls were up there with me, some of the other sponsors were up there with me, and we were just watching and going, and we were eating. And so I looked down and grabbed my cheeseburger because I'm standing there holding my food, and oh, this is not the most comfortable thing when you're standing trying to eat, you know. So I grab my cheeseburger and I take a big old bite of it and I put it down, and I look up, and those boys were going, and they had their mouths wide open and they're looking down, and I'm on the other side of the deck, and I'm like, oh no. Put my plate down, I walk over and I look, and one of the girls decided that she was going to jump. Now, wasn't the smartest thing to do. She was probably the exact opposite of those boys. She was a little overweight. She was not coordinated at all. And obviously, she didn't think about it before she did it. And if I knew that she was going to do it, if I knew that these things were going to happen, I would have stopped her. I would have said, no, you cannot do this. I would have even made the other boys stop doing it if I knew that it was pressuring her to do it. I just was letting these guys be guys and jump. I look down, she's holding her leg, and I go down, and she's not crying. I don't know why. But she's holding her leg, and I go down there, and I rub my fingers down her shin, and it goes, bloop. And I'm like, it broke that bone completely in 2 on that leg. And she's just sitting there. Now, she has no coordination, and she's a little overweight. We had to get that girl from the ground all the way around to the car and then into the hospital. And I spent that entire, well, not entire, but most of the majority of that night in the emergency room at the hospital learning the importance of emergency medical release forms. I had not done emergency medical release form. This girl's mother came to church occasionally. They lived mostly off of welfare. They had a lot of things. They were on Medicaid or Medicare. I don't know which one's which, but they were living on that. And her mom's in Arkansas. We're in Overland Park, Kansas, and we're at a doctor that they've never been to with no paperwork trying to do Medicare. And it was a nightmare. It wasn't a fun night. And then the girl could not use, they gave her crutches, and she could not use crutches. And so when we got her back to the hotel, you know those luggage carts? We got her on the luggage cart, and we wheeled her back to the room. And it was just not a great day. Not a great night. And then the next day, our plans were that this was the last day to be there. We went to an amusement park, and she could not go to the amusement park. And it's a girl. I could not stay with her. And so one of my lady sponsors that was there had to spend the entire day in the hotel room with her, who can't move and can't get around and can't use crutches. And I hated that for her. But, you know, those things happen. Well, it took a while for me to rebuild my trust in teenagers and jumping off of things. And it took a long time for parents to let me live it down. Every time I go somewhere, hey, we're going to McDonald's. You got emergency medical release forms? All the time. They would not let me live it down. But one thing I've learned over the years is, as hard as I try sometimes, I can't do everything by myself. I know, it's a shock. It shocked me when I was thinking about it. But as hard as I try, I can't do everything by myself. I can't watch the teenagers every minute of every hour of every day on every trip that we're on. I can't do it. I can't avoid all the problems, and I can't forget emergency medical release forms. I have to do those things. Now, in the book of Nehemiah felt the overwhelming need to rebuild Jerusalem and the wall that was around it, and he quickly learned that he could not do it by himself. He needed help. He needed other people to come in there and join him with this. So in Nehemiah chapter 2, where hopefully you're at, he makes his first ride around the fallen city, and I want us to look at verse 11, starting in verse 11. And it says, I went to Jerusalem, and after staying there 3 days, I set out during the night with a few others. I had not told anyone what my God had put in my heart to do for Jerusalem. There were no mounts with me except the one I was riding on. By night, I went through the valley gate toward the Jackal Wall and the Dung Gate, examining the walls of Jerusalem which had been broken down, and its gates which had been destroyed by fire. Then I moved on toward the Fountain Gate and the King's Pool, but there was not enough room for my mount to get through. So I went up the valley by night, examining the wall. Finally, I turned back and re-entered through the valley gate. The officials did not know where I had gone or what I was doing, because as of yet I had said nothing to the Jews or the priests or the nobles or officials or any others who would be doing the work. Nehemiah here knew that he must plan ahead. He needed to understand the task that was ahead of him in rebuilding this wall and rebuilding his city. He had to understand it from a personal point of view. He had to go around and look at these things and examine what the problems were, what was going on, what was happening. And because of those things, he had to prepare. He knew what was going to happen. He had to prepare because he had to convince these people to help him rebuild this wall. He had to have this plan. Now, in our church, many people have been given tasks. Now, this is not a current one, but I've tried to go through and find as much as I could. This is an older one, but I'm not reading names here. But this is a committee report. Many times, like in August or September, we have our business meeting, and we go through and we vote on these people that are on these committees. And I just wanted to go through here. There's 3 of them that we don't vote on, but they have a task. The pastor, the youth pastor, the office manager. Then we have the church officers, our treasurer, our clerk. We have our music department, all the many people that play our instruments and lead and do all the things with music department. We have our Sunday school officers, our superintendent, those that help him. We have all of our Sunday school teachers, several of them, in different ages and different age groups and different people that they minister to and they teach. We have other ministries such as our nursery. We have sound and media. We have our deacons. We have our executive committee, flower committee, benevolence committee, social committee, a homecoming committee. We even have ushers that do different works and do different things. We have our youth workers and the teachers that work on Wednesday nights and Sunday mornings in children's church. We have our jam time. We have toddler church, children's church, nursery, all these things going on while people are over here. Wednesday nights, we have Awana. And you saw the sparks that were up here a while ago. We have Awana going on with several. They take up the whole building over there and some of the classrooms over here. We have a Awana class going on. We have our teen church that's going on. We have our college class that's going on. We have our adult class that's going on Wednesday nights. We have our RU ministry. We have our bus ministry. We have a ministry to Life Quest people and the people that are part of that. There's a lot of things that we're part of, and there's a lot of people's names that are on this list that have been elected and have been tasked with a job. And say, here's what I want you to do, and here's the things that we need from you. Now, all of us have to plan, prepare, work together, and communicate in order to achieve our goal. I just tonight had someone asking me about reserving the gym. Can I reserve the gym for such and such date? Can we look at that and try that out? Because We have to plan and prepare and work together and do these things and coordinate to get these things going. And we have to do all of these things in order to achieve a goal. And the goal that we should have is to grow the kingdom of God here in our community and around the world. That should be why we do the things that we do, right? That should be why all these people are on this list, is to grow God's kingdom in our community and around the world. That's why we do these things. But we have to show trust. We have to work together. And sometimes that's really hard. Even in our church, where we love everybody, we've been around forever, it's still hard sometimes to communicate, trust, and love each other the way we should, right? That's how it is. And you know, sometimes our work is not always as fun as other people's work. For example, I'll use me. This New Year's, I went to Gatlinburg. Spent the night in a hotel, watched a concert of all these singers up there singing, listened to some awesome speakers that were speaking to us, walked around the mountains, took a ski lift thing up to the top of Gatlinburg to Ober Gatlinburg, and you know what? That's my job. I get paid for that. It's kind of cool. I love my job. Let me tell you. The other night, had one boy show up for junior's visitation. And me and that boy got in the van, and we drove around, and we visited, and we stopped at McDonald's, just he and I, and we had McDonald's, and since it was just the two of us, and I bought his, I told him, I said, get anything you want. And it was just two of us, and we ate. We had a good time. And that's my job. That's what I enjoy doing. There's a lot of other things that come with that, but you know, there's some people's jobs is they have to teach a class of little kids that don't hardly ever listen to them. They have to lead a choir when sometimes people don't show up, sometimes people don't want to show up, and people don't care what they're singing or don't know what they're singing. They don't listen to the thing. Some jobs are not as easy as others. Sometimes somebody, and we all know who it is, but somebody has to clean the bathrooms. That is not a fun job. I don't like cleaning the bathrooms at my house, let alone cleaning it here with everybody else's bathrooms. I'm not even getting there. But you know what I'm talking about.
They're very appreciated.
They are. But there's a lot of stuff that some jobs are a little funner, that's a word, than others. More fun than others. English was not my high point. I didn't get an A in that class. But you know what? Some jobs are more fun than others. And we look back at Nehemiah, if we look at chapter 3, there were some people in chapter 3 that were asked to build a fountain gate. I don't know what the fountain gate is, but it sounds kind of fun. Now building it, but hey, there's a fountain maybe there, and maybe I start building, I get a little hot, I just dip my head in the fountain and come back out and keep working. Get a little too hot, I just lay down in the fountain. The fountain gate, man, that sounds really cool. That would be a really neat place to be at. But there's also ones that did the fish gate. I don't know what the fish gate is, but can you imagine some of you guys that like to fish? Can you imagine the fish gate? Build a little, fish a little. Build a little, fish a little. Throw my bobber out there, let it sit, and I'm building, I see that bobber move, and I drop my stuff and go get, man, the fish gate. They get to build the fish gate. There's other ones that like the valley gate. They just, you know, those guys that just like to look out and see beautiful things. They can build, and they look up, and they just see the beautiful valley. You know, the valley gate. I don't know if that's what it is or not, but yeah, it sounds good, don't it? It's really neat. There's the sheep gate. Some people like animals more than others. And they're over there at the sheep gate. That could be kind of fun. No, stay back, kick the sheep out, and they're just going down, having a good old time. Oh man, sheep everywhere. Man, that could be fun. And then there's the people that had to work on the towers. Now, I'm a guy, but I had two girls. And my girls like the princess movies. And the princesses are always up in the towers. Can you imagine just the towers? That's just a neat thing. I'm working on the tower. What are you doing? I'm working on the tower. Princess is up there. We're working on the tower. This is going to be a neat thing. The guys are working on the towers, man. That's an awesome thing. But then you know what? There are some guys that are asked to build and work on another gate. Look at verse 14 in chapter 3. The dung gate was repaired by Macaulay. I worked on that name this afternoon. I listened to it, spoken to me, and that guy. He was the son of Rechab, ruler of the district of Beth Hakrim, and he rebuilt it and put its doors with their bolts and bars in place. This guy had the dung gate. That just don't even sound nice. That doesn't sound fun. That doesn't sound like something that I would want to be working on. It probably didn't smell too good. Probably, can you imagine dropping your hammer and having to pick it up? It just probably wasn't a fun gate to have to work on. Other people were working on the fountain gate and the fish gate, and I got the dung gate. Many times we look at our jobs as not being that important. Or we look and we think that others can do much better than us. Nehemiah chapter 3, each person did their work like it was the most important job in the world. Regardless of what gate or what wall or what area they were working on, each one worked like it was the most important thing ever. And they did it what they were supposed to. They did it with care, they did it with detail, and they took their jobs seriously, regardless of what it was. Everything. Now, the same thing should happen here. We all have different tasks that have been assigned to us. We all have different talents. And when we focus on how the importance of our job and how important our job is, and then we work in unison together with others, great things can be accomplished. But sometimes, people come in and start criticizing it. They don't like it. They don't like what you're doing. This is your job. You got the dung gate. But somebody comes over and they're standing up high out of the dung gate and they're pointing at you about how you're putting that gate together. And they don't like how it's been happening. And they don't like what you're doing. And they don't like any of that stuff there. And they give us criticism. And you know what? It can hurt. Look at chapter 4, verse 1. When Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became angry and was greatly incensed, and he ridiculed the Jews. And in the presence of his associates and the army of Samaria, he said, "What are those feeble Jews doing? Will they restore their wall? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they finish in a day? Can they bring the stones back to life from those heaps of rubble, burned as they are?" Tobiah the Ammonite, who was at his side, said, "What are they building? Even a fox climbing up on it could break down their walls of stone." It's tough when you sit there and you work on your class and you do things in your class and for your class. And then somebody comes up and tells you how wrong you did it. And how come you didn't do it like this? And how come it didn't do it like this? Man, that's ridiculous. I can't believe you did that. And sometimes it hurts, and sometimes it's tough to hear those things and to hear those things coming from people. But Nehemiah and his people, they pressed on. They didn't let the others discourage them. And the Bible says they had a mind to work. Verse 6 in chapter 4, it says, "So we rebuilt the wall till all of it reached half of its height, for the people worked with all of their heart." That's what I want us to keep our minds focused on. Whatever we have, whatever we're doing, whatever job it is, however important you think it is, we're supposed to do it with all of our heart. Whether it's vacuuming the floors, whether it's singing in the choir, whether it's changing some baby's diaper in the nursery. Whatever it is, we need to do it with all of our heart. In the face of ridicule, these people continued their task. And one of the easiest things to do is to give up or to quit. When I was a kid, I probably told this story before. When I was a kid, my dad would lay on top of me. We would wrestle on the floor, and then he'd lay on top of me. Now, I'm a little bigger than my dad now, but it'd be like having Tanner up here and me laying on top of Tanner. Do you quit? Yes. No, you don't quit. My dad, he'd get me and we'd just keep rolling around and wrestling the floor. You don't quit. My dad, he would always say, don't quit, don't quit, don't quit. Don't leave early. I learned a long time ago, we were at a Nashville Sounds baseball game. They were the farm league for the New York Yankees. And they were having a special game. The New York Yankees came to town, and the New York Yankees were playing the Nashville Sounds, the farm league. Man, I was all excited. We were kids, and we were there watching the Yankees play in Nashville, Tennessee, in a little rinky-dink baseball field. Man, that was the coolest thing. Top of the ninth, the Yankees were winning 4 or 5 runs. My dad, being the kind of guy he is, he's like, let's go. Sounds are up, 3 outs, it's over. They're losing to the Yankees by 4 or 5 runs. It's over. Let's go. We're walking in the parking lot. And as we're walking in the parking lot towards the car, you hear the crowd start to yell loud behind us. We keep on going. And then they're yelling loud. We get to the car, and Dad turns on the car, turns on the radio, and the Sounds came back and beat the Yankees. And I was in the parking lot. And I missed it. I do not like leaving early for anything. I remember being at a football game, Arkansas Razorback football game. Whoever I was with, they were driving and they wanted to leave. And I heard the roar of the stadium in Little Rock, Arkansas, as the Razorbacks came back on a touchdown, run back on a thing, and they won. And I missed it. Twice. You know what they say, 3 strikes, you're out? You don't leave, you don't quit early. And that's the point I'm trying to get here is you don't quit early. You have a task. We have a task together. And you know what? Some of you guys, your names are not on the list. Because you haven't been elected to those things. You've done your time, and now you're not, and somebody else is taking those positions, and you're not doing those things. But you know what? We're all given a task. All of us are. We all have a responsibility and a job. You can be an encourager to other people. You know what? Just the fact, and Brother Todd would agree with me, just the fact that you're here tonight and I can stand up here and see people is an encouragement. Because there are churches, you come up here and you see about 3 or 4 people out here, and that's not real encouraging as a pastor when you're up in front of about 3 or 4 people when you had like 150 in the morning. And then you come back that night and there's 3. It's not encouraging. But just the fact that you're here is an encouragement to us. When you come in and you see somebody, I'll tell you what, Mr. Guy Clark encourages me. He is my buddy because I give him the hardest time, besides Miss Chris, of anybody here. He comes in, and he's got that cane, and he's walking in here, and I say, hurry up, old man, get out of the way. Now, some of you guys, I know that sounds very disrespectful, but me and Mr. Clark, we got something going. And if I knew that he was going to be upset with me and he was taking it the wrong way, I would not say it. But he gives me a hard time coming back at me. And we have a good time. And I enjoy every time I see, because he always looks for me and he always says hi. Mr. Dallas Boyd, a.k.a. the Candy Man. Never know if you shake his hand, he might have candy in that hand. And you know what? I've encouraged kids, and I've heard that some of them do. They go up just to shake his hand, just to see if he has candy. And you know what? That's an encouragement. That's an encouragement. There's some people that drive the van. I know that can be a discouraging moment. I drove vans and buses and did stuff for years. But you know, those kids look forward to seeing you. Look forward to you being there. And when we're not, they're like, I've gotten phone calls. Hey, Mr. Darren, can you come get me? I missed the bus tonight, or I missed the van. Depending on what time it is, I'll say, I'll be right there. Or I'll send one of these teenagers that has a driver's license. I'll say, go get him. I'm telling you, every one of us has a job and has a responsibility to do something. And when we do it together, see, here's the thing about God. You can imagine God is a conductor, not a train conductor, but an orchestra conductor. And he's conducting an orchestra. And you know what? My wife plays the oboe, or used to anyway. We still have an oboe at my house. I don't even know what an oboe really looks like much. It's a weird-looking instrument. No, it's not a clarinet. It's an oboe. But it looks like a clarinet, but it's different. But the thing is, if you had an oboe up here, and you had an oboe playing by itself, it may not sound the best by itself. But when you add the rest of the orchestra around it, it adds so much to it. Up here, I can't do this by myself. I can mess up. I do mess up. But when you add the other people around here, it's the orchestra that God's conducting. And you're part of that orchestra. You have a role. You have a job, no matter how important or how unimportant you think it might be. We all have a role, and we're all in the same role together, and we're doing it for the same purpose and the same reason. Nehemiah could not have built the walls around the city in the time frame that he did it without having the other people there to do it. Nehemiah could not do it by himself. I want you to remember, as you leave tonight, no matter who you are, no matter how long you've been here, some a long time and some not that long, you are important to our church. You may not have an official role, but without you, our harmony is off. There's so much that can be accomplished. There's so much that needs to be accomplished. It's a new day, a new year, and we need to do this together. We need to build trust. We need to build communication. We need to come into whatever job that we're doing with all of our heart and do it 100%. Because that's what God wants. That's what God's expecting from us. And that's what we need to do. And that's my encouragement to you tonight. You are important. I enjoy seeing your faces, really. All of you. Some a little more than others. But I enjoy it. Hey, I'm just being truthful, right? Right. And you know what? There's somebody else in here that enjoys seeing you, that you're an encouragement to. I don't know who that person is. But there's somebody else in here that enjoys seeing you and enjoys the fact that you're here. And so this may not be a evangelistic or a, I don't know, type of message and pushing. I just want you to know you're important. You need to know that because we need you. We need you to build not this church, but to build God's kingdom. you need to